And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of York. My name is Carol Stowell, and I am co-chair of the Social Justice Committee, and I use she, her pronouns. Before we enter into worship time together, there are a few announcements I want to share about our community here at UUCY. So if you've come today with children, we're delighted to have you. Children between kindergarten and 7th grade are going to be invited to go downstairs to meet with our teachers, Eric and Mary, for special programming after the time for all ages. Our nursery is always available for children who are 0 to, well, not 0, but to 4. So, woo-hoo! No, don't have any babies downstairs. We're not ready for that. Okay. So sign up your child at uucy.org registration, or you can sign up to be a teacher. We're always looking for teachers, and there's a teacher sign up under UUCY as well. So this is a number of things happening today. There's going to be a very special but short meeting right after this service. This is a congregational meeting. We have 2 bylaws we have to listen to and pass. And if you're not a member, stay. Then hear about how democracy works here in our church. So that'll be right after the service. Then next Saturday, this Saturday, is our auction, our annual big party. And if you haven't seen the silent auction display in the carriage house, you might consider stopping there for coffee and refreshments after the congregational meeting. Okay? If you find yourself feeling a little anxious about the upcoming election, oh no, none of us feel that, right? Join us for coffee and politics. That's going to be after the congregational meeting, and it'll be in this room. And we will have some time to share our concerns, our nervousness about it, how we're going to navigate this period together. And we've compiled also a thoughtful collection of events from UUCY and other organizations that are designed to provide connection, reflection, and mutual support. To find out what else is happening over election week, please visit our website. And there will be a special vigil here on Wednesday night. So that's another thing, okay? Finally, mark your calendars for a York Black History Walk on November 16th at 11. Where's Sean? I saw you walk in. There she is. Check in with her if you have questions. It'll be on the 16th at 11. We have a local Black historian, Samantha Dorm, who's going to lead the walk, and we need at least 10 people, okay? Dawn Amig, I think I saw you. You want to say something special to this wonderful group, and here you go.
I look up to her a lot in learning and figuring out how to run this committee. She told me a story one time about she was at a church that it was just beautiful, and she was talking to the people that were running the church, said, how do you keep this ground so nice? They said, we pay for it. We do not pay for it. We count on all of you guys to do it. And when you have a chance to step back like yesterday and just watch everyone doing their thing, it really is amazing. It touches my heart. And I just thank each and every one of you that came out. And we'll have a cleanup in the spring end. So if you get a chance for that, please come out.
Well, now that we have addressed business, it's time to turn our attention to worship. Again, my name is Carol Stowell. I'm the co-chair of the Social Justice Committee, and my pronouns are she, her. And I'll be helping to lead this service as your worship associate. Whoever you are, whoever you love, We're glad your faith journey brought you here today. The mission of this congregation is to nurture a loving community, inspire lifelong spiritual and personal growth, and act for a better world. We welcome all of you joining us in person or online. And if you're joining us for the first time, we invite you to visit our welcome desk outside to fill out a visitor card. We invite you to bring your whole self into this sanctuary space with us. If you are here in the sanctuary, please remember to set your devices to worship mode, otherwise known as silent, okay? And if it'd be helpful for you to sketch or color or enjoy other centering activity during worship, you're invited to check out our spirit work cart in the back of the sanctuary. Now, let us mark this time made sacred by our presence by taking a collective breath. Again, welcome to UUCY. As we light the chalice, the symbol of our living tradition here in the sanctuary, you're also invited to light a chalice or candle of your own if you're joining us remotely. This morning, our words are from The Great Turning by Lisa Garcia Sampson. In these wild, historic, and uncertain times, we gather to remember who we are, who we belong to, and what we are called to do. As we light this chalice, we kindle the spirit of the Great Turning, the movement for justice alive in this nation today. May we feel it in our bones and in the stillness of this hour. May we sense it calling our name. Now, please join us in the opening hymn, Building a New Way.
Let's sing together. Number 1017 in the Teal hymnal.
I'd like to invite those who are young in body or in spirit who feel like joining me here on the rug for a brief Time for All Ages story. Got some people here. And this is for all of us, so I'm gonna sit down, but this story is for us all. Good morning. Today I offer a tale of 3 villages. There were once 3 travelers whose village was flooded, and together they set out for higher ground to find a new home. As they journeyed, they reminisced on stories of their former home and their loved ones lost to the flood. As they crossed over mountains, they saw a sheltered, fertile valley beyond with a cluster of 3 small villages. One of them said, "This land looks a lot like home, but I'm a little bit nervous about meeting new people." Do you ever get nervous about meeting new people? The second one said, "We have become good friends. We know and trust each other, and we share tasks fairly." The third said, Let's ask good questions at each village to help us find a new home. Over the fire that night, they came up with 2 questions. How does the village make decisions? And what happens when you don't agree? When they entered the first village, the villagers told them, "We have a powerful ruler who decides what is best for our village. The ruler's family has been in charge for many generations. If we have a disagreement, the ruler decides for us." The travelers looked at each other with tight lips. Then they thanked the villagers and continued on their journey. When they entered the second village, they asked, "How does your village make decisions?" The villagers responded, "We vote for a few people to represent all of us on a council, and we vote for people who promise to make decisions that are best for us." Then the travelers asked, "What happens when you don't agree with what the council decides?" "Sometimes we don't all like what they decide, but we have to do it." The travelers looked at each other with disappointed eyes, then said thank you and goodbye to those villagers as well. They trudged to the third village and talked amongst themselves. One said, "That sounded good at first, but was it better than the village with a ruler?" Another said, "Not really. Some people have a bigger say." And the third said, "After the others vote for them, the people on the council can do whatever they want." In the third village, they found some villagers to ask about decision-making there. One villager smiled and said, "Come, we will show you." The villagers formed a large circle and invited the travelers to join them. A villager wearing a special necklace said, "We welcome you into our circle. If you would like to stay, you must accept our agreements. Speak the truth, keep your promises, honor and care for this circle as part of the earth and sky." The travelers looked at each other with shiny eyes, then agreed in unison. Another villager explained, "This is how we make important decisions, by listening to each other in turn, under these agreements until the decision is made. This is also how we disagree, by listening to each other in turn. Sometimes we agree to disagree, but we disagree in respect and peace." The travelers smiled widely. They had found their new home. Why do you think that the travelers decided to stay in the third village? Maybe the sense of welcome, inclusion, participation, respect. And what is important to the people of the third village? Did you notice any values in their agreements? Like what? It's hard to remember, I know. Maybe speak the truth. Keep your promises. Honor and care for this circle as part of the earth and sky. Listen, respect, and practice peace. As you go to your RE classes this morning or decide to stay in the service, whatever calls to you, I'd like you to think about what values people share where you live, where you play, where you work, where you go to school, and what rules you go by to help live by those values. Let us now rise in body or in spirit and sing our children out while also practicing our hand motions for this new song. I'll guide you. It's very easy. Okay. May your mind be open to learning, and may your lips speak truth into the world, and your heart know love, and your hands do the work of justice. As you go your way in peace, as you go your way in peace. Oh, may your mind be open to new learning, and may your lips speak truth into the world. May your heart know love, and your hands do the work of justice. As you go your way in peace, as you go your way in peace. You may be seated.
Our reading this morning is entitled The Promise, the Practice, and the People. In this fall season of 2024, we are at a crossroads in history, a moment in time when democracy is not just a word or a system of government, but a living, breathing promise, a covenant that we make with one another. This promise of democracy is one of collective power and shared responsibility. Many understand that this covenantal promise is not without its challenges. Democracy asks us to engage in issues, to participate in bringing about change, and to care deeply about one another. It is cultivated in the small, consistent actions, in the conversations we have, the ways we listen to and learn from one another, as well as the votes that we cast. It demands that we see beyond ourselves, recognizing the dignity of every person and honoring the rich diversity of our lives. In the words of Vice President Kamala Harris, democracy, our democracy is not guaranteed. It is only as strong as our willingness to fight for it, to guard it, and never take it for granted. We, the people, have the power. You have the power. And when we vote, we expand the power, the possibility, and the promise for democracy. It is clear that at the heart of this democracy is the promise of the people, our hopes and our dreams. We are the democracy and the stewards of this promise, the practitioners of this sacred work. As Unitarian Universalists, we believe democracy is more than a political system. It is a shared journey, a collective responsibility, and a profound act of faith in one another. May we walk this path with grace and with purpose and with phenomenal commitment to the common good. Amen.
We lost a great spiritual leader and community organizer in our community last month. Reverend Joan Sabatino, the executive director of UU Justice PA, died on October 17th, surrounded by her family. Reverend Joan's mantra was, "We vote, we win." May we carry this mantra forward with us into this week and beyond. I am proud to share that both Dana and I are officially registered to vote in Pennsylvania. We are happy to be here and represent our liberal values as we cast our ballots on Tuesday. I was reminded this week of words that American civil rights activist W.E.B. Du Bois spoke in an address on human rights for all minorities on November 7th, 1945. Democracy is not merely majority rule based on the fact that majority has the physical force to prevail. It rests on the fact that when we have proven knowledge, interpreted through the experience of a large number of individuals, it is possible through this pooled knowledge and experience to come to decisions much more fundamental and much more far-reaching than can be had in any other way. The people participating effectively in this pool of democracy must be alive and well. They must know the world which they are interpreting, and they must know themselves. We, the people, this pool of democracy, are alive, and as well as we could be, all things considered, perhaps. We, the people, know the world through our own lenses. Do we know the issues we are interpreting to the best of our abilities? Do we, the people, know ourselves and our responsibilities? As Carol shared in the reading this morning, this promise of democracy is one of collective power and shared responsibility. So let's talk about rights, privileges, and responsibilities. A 2022 Pew Research study found that a majority of Americans, about 57%, say that voting is a fundamental right for every citizen of the US and should not be restricted in any way. We might define a right as that which is due to anyone without anyone by just claim, a legal guarantee or a moral principle, a moral or legal entitlement to have or obtain something, or to act in a certain way. The rights that the Declaration of Independence outlines as self-evident truths, which cannot be taken away, are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And in order to make sure those rights are never violated, governments are instituted by the consent of the governed. We, the governed, exercise our right to vote, give consent, and elect officials to represent us and ensure those rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness can never be taken away. Privilege, though, is a bit more nuanced of a term, being defined as a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to particular person or group. And I think the word privilege comes into this conversation of voting for a few reasons. One is because it's not universally recognized by world powers as the only way to govern. The democracy of the United States government may not be functioning on all its best cylinders at present, but we have a privilege that as US citizens to participate in a democracy that not everyone around the world has access to. The other reason the term privilege is used when it comes to voting is the view that certain behaviors and actions may lead to the unearning or removal of the rights, such as the right to vote, of certain citizens. That 2022 Pew Research study I mentioned earlier found that 42% of Americans expressed the view that voting is a privilege that comes with responsibilities and can be limited if adult US citizens don't meet some requirements. What requirements must be met aside from being 18 years of age and a US citizen? You might already know that being accused and convicted of a felony can result in someone losing their right to vote. Although there are exceptions, apparently even if you have 34 felony counts against you, you can still vote and even run for president. Policies vary state by state. That's what makes it so complicated. And there are also ways that voting rights can be reinstated or restored for some citizens. But did you know that if someone is accused of and jailed for a misdemeanor crime, regardless of conviction status or innocence, they may also lose their right to vote in an election? If I'm not mistaken, there are only 2 states in the country, Vermont and Maine, that allow people who happen to be in a jail cell on election day to cast their vote. Do you know how many people are sitting in jail right now that have actually been found guilty of a crime? It's less than 25%. A full 76% of people held in jail cells have been proven guilty of nothing more than being unable to make bail. In the 30 states that require people with felonies to pay off any and all fines before they get their vote back, it's no stretch to say that people are being disenfranchised for being poor and broke. Still, there are at least 36 million people in the US with disabilities, which is about 11% of our population. And while technically federal law requires polling places to be accessible like any other public space, in reality, only 1/3 of them are fully accessible to people with physical disabilities. And finally, there's the enormous number of people who are US citizens or nationals, pay US taxes, fight in US wars, have no criminal history at all, but have no right to vote for president. The 4 million people living on the 5 island territories of the US, residents of Guam, the Virgin Islands, the Northern Mariana Islands, American Samoa, and Puerto Rico can vote in congressional elections, but when it comes to president, they suddenly no longer count. Perhaps there is more privilege to our right to vote than previously thought. Voting holds power, and power combined with privilege needs something to balance it, to keep it accountable. Responsibility, then, is the state or fact of having a duty to deal with something, being answerable or accountable for something within one's power. We have rights, which also happen to be privileges, both of which require responsibility. My future brother-in-law is originally from India, but recently was sworn in as a US citizen in Washington, D.C. The whole family celebrated with him, and I asked him if he had any comments or reflections on his experiences before, during, or after becoming a US citizen. He describes US citizenship as a privilege he wishes more people took seriously rather than trying to take it away from others. He sees being an American as a state of mind that's allowed to be hyphenated with other identities, similar to Unitarian Universalism in that way. He is and will always be an Indian American with both. He says, "I love that it is the immigrants who have truly made this country great." Although he expressed that he felt icky saying that particular phrase, since it's been the war cry of a man who shall not be named. And therefore, he says, I think it is our responsibility to stand up and fight in whatever ways we can. I give thanks for teachers and companions who remind me that democracy is a practice and citizen is a verb. Our Vice President Kamala Harris reminds us that our democracy is not guaranteed. It is only as strong as our willingness to fight for it, to guard it, and to never take it for granted. Shayna French, a congregant of the UU community called Sanctuary Boston, writes about an experience she had as a youth learning about democracy. I was 17 when I learned what democracy was, she says. I was with 75 young people at the Youth Empowerment and Spirituality, or YES, UU conference on Star Island, as we chose our leader for next year's conference. It had only been a week, but I love these people, and I was so damn impressed. Sorry, Mama. That's what it says. It's her words. The candidates had given short speeches about their hopes and commitments and left the room. We were left to decide. Each person who spoke did so constructively and kindly. People spoke about their leadership skills and how they felt in their presence. One friend of a candidate shared a concern about how one of the potential leaders managed their many competing priorities. Then we voted anonymously. In the 7 years since I bridged, I don't think I've been a part of an election process run by adults that was so loving. When I reflect on what made the yes elections work, despite disappointment by those who weren't chosen, I think it's because of the time we spent building relationships. Our nightly worship services were about connecting with each other and feeling part of the whole, more than about our individual faith journeys. We'd taken time to hang out casually, to build connection. In that election, we were able to think beyond who we liked best and think about what the group needed the most. When I think about how democracy takes shape in a country of 330 million people, it seems almost inconceivable that we're talking about the same process as my 75-person youth conference used. But it gives me hope, too, that it is possible to learn about self-governance in the decisions we make in our families, schools, congregations, and conferences. Having relationships where we can speak truth to one another and disagree requires that we invest in one another. It means we must care about something bigger than ourselves. And these skills we get to practice every month of the year, not just in November. Each and every time we make a decision with another person or a group of people, we can practice democracy. Are we listening deeply to one another? Does everyone who wants to get to speak? Am I clear on whether I'm speaking up for my own wants or needs or the good of the group? Are we following our own values? And perhaps most importantly, have we worked to build relationships and truly know each other so we can respect each other when we disagree? Adrienne Marie Brown shared from her community organizing experience in an interview entitled Democracy, Fractals, and Sci-Fi as part of the podcast called How to Be a Citizen with Baratunde Thurston. She said she started asking this question to people: how many of you practice democracy? And she said she'd have everyone raise your hands if you think you practice democracy in your actual life. And some people would ask, what do you mean by that? So she responds to their questions. Do you sit down together and talk about how you're spending the resources of your home and your community? Do you talk about how you're agreeing to keep each other safe? Do you talk about how you're agreeing to share time and who has decision-making power? Do you make those decisions together? Brown says there would always be confident people who would raise their hands at first, and then she'd ask, right, so do you do this in your household? Are the kids involved? And hands would start to come down. So Brown said, okay, great. For the people who still have your hands up, do you practice it in your neighborhood, on your block? Is anybody practicing democracy on their block? And more hands would come down. She shared that she almost never made it to the community level, that people in whatever they think of as their community weren't practicing democracy. Are we? I think we will, directly after the service today, hold a literal democratic vote of our members to make collective decisions in a congregational meeting. We covenant and promise to engage in open and honest conversations about our past, present, and future. We have processes for becoming a voting member and guidelines to make sure every voice is heard. And our UU value of justice states that we work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systematic oppression. We support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions. We support it, but do we always practice it? I wonder. Brown writes a lot about the fractal nature of things, how the small reflects the large. We're each these small cells of something much larger than ourselves. And there's a particular challenge we face when trying to change what's at the top of our structure, like the president. But what happens if we change what's at the top but aren't practicing democracy on the intimate scale? Is it sustainable? Will it hold? Brown says we need to figure out how to practice small d democracy. What happens at any federal or national level is only possible because of what's happening at all the local levels, she says. Just like we heard in the reading this morning, it is cultivated in the small, consistent actions, in the conversations we have, the ways we listen to and learn from one another, as well as the votes we cast. Brown was heavily influenced by her mentor, Grace Lee Boggs, a Chinese-American activist who lived to 100 years old. She threw her lot in with the Black liberation struggle in Detroit and beyond. She was an incredible thinker and writer. Boggs would say that democracy is a really beautiful thing if you actually practice it, but very few of us do. We find ways to opt out and reinstate hierarchy, to move around having to actually do democratic practice. Boggs also framed our charge to practice that small d democracy when she said, "We have entered the epoch of responsibilities, which requires new, more socially minded human beings and new, more participatory and place-based concepts of citizenship and democracy." Boggs felt that we were stuck in a perception of a representative democracy that limited our ability to embody the change we wish to see in the world. Boggs famously said that we have to transform ourselves in order to transform the world. Brown explains that part of fractal awareness is starting to take responsibility for what I am currently putting into the pattern. If I'm not paying attention, if I'm mindless, if I'm just operating by what I was trained to do, or if I'm just reactive, most of the people who are operating this way are engaging in unhealthy conflict, unhealthy patterns, and passive aggression. Look in your own families. What are the patterns of emotional behavior and conflict resolution you see in your own families of origin? That's usually the same pattern that you are then helping replicate in the world, she says. As this election day on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024, approaches and arrives and passes, may we hold tight to the responsibilities we have as citizens, as participants, as the governed whose consent is required. May we hold on to hope, and may we hold on to each other. Blessed be, may it be so, and amen. St. Augustine is often credited with the statement that those who sing pray twice. This hymn we are about to sing together was written by Holly Near in 1978 when she learned that politicians Harvey Milk and George Moscone were assassinated. She shared during a concert that her lyrics changed over time and as she understood her responsibility to maintain right relationship. We originally sang "We Are Gay and Lesbian" together, but then we are surrounded by the support of allies, so I changed it to "We Are Gay and Straight Together." And now we're learning more and more about gender and sexuality, she says, so let us now sing "We Are All in This Together." Would you please to join together in singing number 170, "We Are a Gentle, Angry People."
We're so blessed, aren't we? Please join us in extinguishing this chalice and your home chalices if you have lit them with these words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
As benediction words this morning, I offer words by Lucas Hergert. We are democracy, unruly, unfinished, unrelenting, people of rebellious joy, taking to the streets, underground resilience, resisting compliance, the pleasure of activism organizing into simple hope. We are democracy, people of principles taking on principalities, witnessing the worth of those called unworthy. Justice just now gaining ground. Integrity of interdependent existence extending. Living democracy in heads, hands, and hearts. We know that democracy can die, ossify, brittle byproducts of bygone idealists, plotting politicians pirating votes, corporations cannibalizing our care for the world. Look, it can wither, distend, come to an end. Democracy, today we will love you alive. Make you ours, make you thrive, and vote as though our hope is on the line. Blessed be, may it be so, and amen. For our postlude, and I invite you all to join us for the congregational meeting immediately following the service. It should not be long. And we'd love to just have anyone, including friends who are not yet members, just witness our democratic process so that you can perhaps make a fully informed decision to join us in this at some point.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the one